And now we're joined by our guest, Oleksey Goncharenko, a Ukrainian MP. Hello, and thanks for joining us.
Hello.
So to kick off this discussion, I'd like to ask you, I mean, it was just mentioned by former Prime Minister Mark Belka about this formal invitation to invite Ukraine to NATO at the upcoming summit in Washington, D.C., which will take place in July. What are your expectations for that summit? Because I've heard different versions that there is going to be a push for maybe formal invitation and, well, that there's not going to be.
Yeah, hello. That's super important question because without Ukraine being a member of NATO, there will be no security in Europe. It's not just a theory from me, it's a fact because Europe tried to build security in the region by having Ukraine as a buffer between Russia and Europe, and it failed. It just failed. So we just need this and say how it is, unfortunately. So the only way to have security is Ukraine to become member of NATO. And we hope that a big push for this will happen during the Washington summit. Unfortunately, a year ago, Vilnius summit was kind of a wasted opportunity for Ukraine and for NATO. Also, I just want to tell you that Ukraine for NATO is not a burden. Ukraine also will be a significant part of NATO and a big force in NATO because the Ukrainian land army is today the second strongest in the alliance after the United States of America, just because of hundreds of thousands of people with battle experience, combat experience of 21st century, real combat experience of 21st century. So that's why Ukraine is NATO needs Ukraine, Ukraine needs NATO. So it's a match. So we need to push this, and Washington summit should become. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it's possible that we will become member of NATO, or will be formally invited to become member of NATO right now. But there should be some invitation. For example, there is a group which proposed of group of Yermak Rasmussen, which proposed to give Ukraine invitation with final joining not later than in July 2028 or something like this. But we need to make a concrete and real step, for Ukraine to NATO, and that should happen in Washington. In all other cases, Putin will feel himself emboldened, and it will be just invite him for further escalation.
Well, just following up on that thread, we heard President Zelensky say that Ukraine's partners are afraid of Russia losing the war and that they would like Kiev to win in a way that Russia doesn't lose because of just the unpredictable geopolitics that might emerge out of that. Can you comment on that statement?
Unfortunately, that's absolutely true. I agree with President Zelensky. And here on TVP, I told this not once. Our partners they want Ukraine to win, but at the same time, they're afraid of Russia to lose. That's a big problem. And still this problem exists. And all this that we can't use Western weaponry on Russian territory, and that the support in weaponry is so unstable and not really big, because even like $61 billion, it sounds like huge money. But let us go into details. In the last package from the United States, which was in so much debate, with so much drama, was adopted. But from this $61 billion, real military support to Ukraine, weaponry to Ukraine, is $28 billion. And from this 28, half, near $14 billion, is for a long-term contract, which will start to be fulfilled from this year to up to 2029. So even not 2025, but 2029. And military budget of Russian Federation just for this year is $113 billion. So we need to answer the question, do we really want to win over Russia? If yes, we need more support right now without any restrictions. If not, this is the game where really we're afraid of Russia to lose. And by this, we will never win in the way how we should win.
Right. It seems lately, in the absence of or that delay, that really long delay that surely cost Ukrainian lives, coming out of the U.S. I mean, right now we're still talking about reconstruction of Ukraine, and I'm wondering if maybe that should be put on the side burner, and actually the discussion should focus on seizing those assets that are frozen in the West and allocating them for the purchase of weapons so that Ukraine can defend itself. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. These Russian assets should be seized. That's good that they're frozen, but also I think not all, which should be frozen. So we need to freeze all the Russian assets, all what is possible for us. And we need finally to make decisions on using these assets, not just to freeze it, but to use it. And first of all, definitely to win the war. Because if we don't have weaponry, we don't have weaponry to win the war, to stop Russian attacks, to intercept Russian missiles. Every day the damage is bigger and bigger and bigger. So we will never really have a possibility to cover all expenses and all losses of Ukraine. So we need to, the biggest thing is to help us to stop Russians completely, to liberate our land.
I wanted to ask about the mobilization legislation which takes effect this week. When do you expect to see the fruits of that come into play?
I think that the first fruits already you can see. The law was adopted not in the best way possible. Unfortunately, we don't have definition of terms of service, which is a big problem and big mistake was made. But in any way, more people will be mobilized in the nearest month, it's for sure. And Ukrainian troops will be more numerous on front line. But, we can't just move by this, because if we will just fight with the Russians and compete with them in number of people, we will always lose. Ukraine is 4 times smaller than Russia in manpower. Poland is 4 times smaller than Russia in manpower, and so on. So we can't just go like this. We need to fight with the best possible weaponry, with the best possible tactics and strategy. That should be our real strategy, not just to compete with them by numbers. In numbers, Ukrainian army is already very numerous. We have almost 1 million people, which is a huge number of people who are fighting. But we need much more. By the way, one more thing which I want to tell you is that we need to speak about sending troops to Ukraine, not to fight. I'm not saying that let Polish soldiers fight with Russians in trenches. No, but I think Polish soldiers today can help Ukraine, for example, to make trainings of Ukrainian military on Ukrainian soil, to protect Ukrainian-Belarusian border, which will give us possibility to free our units to fight with Russians, and so on, to make maintenance of this equipment that we are receiving. So that is the discussion which was started by President Macron. It should be continued, and it should be not just continued, but it should be there should be decisions made in order to make it real.
Yes, yeah, it should be. It should be. Now, back to that mobilization, because, the situation that we're seeing unfolding in the Kharkiv region along the border areas, a lot of the, I guess, blame is being put on that those areas are maybe understaffed or undermanned. So therefore, can this mobilization contribute to bolstering the defenses along the critical areas of the border there with Russia and actually helping to force them out as far as the Kharkiv region is concerned?
Yeah, there are a number of reasons why what had happened in Kharkiv, why it was possible, and some limited gains, but still some limited success Russians they have there. Why? First, it's internal Ukrainian thing. It was not even not enough people. There were not enough fortifications, trenches, and concrete, and so on. This is a big mistake. Definitely, every mistake should have a name. And now, as a member of the parliament, I want to hear who is guilty and who will pay the price, at least political price, for this being sacked, because that is something for us, something which we can't ignore and we need to react on. But there was a completely, unfortunately, not Ukrainian problem why it had happened. We saw for weeks and months how Russians were preparing this attack. But the problem was that it was happening on their territory, and Russians can attack Ukraine till the last inch of our territory. And even you remember how Russian missile was in Polish airspace or in Romanian and so on. But we can't attack with Western weaponry Russian territory. So we saw Russians preparing, but we couldn't attack them. And this is a big problem for us. All these artificial red lines in the support of Ukraine, which really they don't give us possibility to use what we have, and we don't have too much. But even what we have, we can't use on 100%.
Right. Well, I'm wondering. Actually, this is a good question. I think we've heard them talking about sending Patriot batteries to Kharkiv. We know that Russian planes can use glide bombs and other munitions on the border areas on the Kharkiv region without even leaving their airspace. So would that transfer of Patriots to that region, do you think that would allow, it would come with the permission to shoot down Russian planes in Russian airspace?
Yeah, definitely. If not, they will not do their job, because the distance between city of Kharkiv to Russian border is 25 kilometers. And if we can't attack aims in Russian airspace, there will be no much sense in these Patriots near Kharkiv. So we need Patriot, definitely, and also we need the possibility to use them as for 100%, as much as we can.
Right. And then Secretary Blinken, his last visit to Kyiv, he did kind of say that Ukrainians can use the weapons as they see fit, although they don't encourage the use on Russian territory. Do you think that's somewhat of a green light to be able to use the weapons provided to Kyiv to go ahead and use them?
No, unfortunately, still not. It's a movement in this direction, but still, it's not what we need.
Okay. All right. Well, Oleksey Goncharenko, thank you very much. We appreciate it as always.